I drew a city full of cats from my map of Araceli. 2 cities sit in the north of the country of Araceli, in a region known as Alaminia. These 2 cities are called Caninae and Felinia. Cats inhabit one and dogs the other, but not just any dogs or cats. Anthropomorphic warriors inhabit the 2 cities, fierce, tall, and warlike. The 2 city-states have warred against each other for a long time, and many think they will war forever. But how did they get there? Over the next 2 videos, I will delve deep into the history of Felinia and Caninae. Our tale begins long before the awakening of man, but it was decades after the curse of the dwarves. Many believe the Alaminians were once regular dogs and regular cats, but it was never so. The ancient Alaminians were, once, long ago, mountain-dwelling tribes placed in the world at the beginning of time. For generations, the 2 species of Alaminians lived separate of each other, clueless at the other's existence. Life was peaceful throughout the tribes, except for an occasional clash within the 2. Then the 2 groups decided to expand. Under the leadership of Acerus Bellum, an iron-hearted Felinian general, and Osman Rayan, the chief of the largest Canadian tribe, the 2 species simultaneously began uniting their race and spreading their influence outwards. By the 2nd year of expansion on the Felinian part, the 2 races met in a small skirmish in the valley of Amul. The battle was quickly over, with minimal losses, both parties pulling out of the valley before nightfall, and thought nothing else of the encounter except to tell their superiors. The then minor battle was a turning point in the history of the North. For months, the Felinians and Caninaeans saw no other trace of the other nation, but slowly, as the mountain territories got eaten up, saw more and more battles with the other. It was 3 years after the initial idea of expansion had entered the minds of the Alamanians when nearly the entirety of the whole mountain range of the two races had been carved up between the Felinians and Caninaeans, all except the Sebulian Valley. The Sebulian Valley is the largest valley in the Alamanian Mountains, a vast, green, and luscious valley separated in half by two arms of mountains, coming down to bottleneck the valley, and surrounded by a thick forest. Since the origin of the two races, they had both treated the valley as their sacred place, though no one ever went there. The valley had sat silent for ages, but had stayed locked within both races' history. They claimed it had been their birthplace, and would live on to be their resting place. Both leaders wanted to pilgrim to the spot, but General Bullum made it there first, and set up his camp in the half of the valley that was closest to the Felinian homeland. Grand Chief Rayan found out about it almost immediately. No one would set up a war camp in his tribe's birthplace without going unpunished. Within a day, Rayan had his army barreling down on the unsuspecting Felinians in the valley below. Though caught by surprise, the Felinians put up a strong defense, slowly moving back into the dense forest and funneling out to the other side of the valley, which had been long unknown to them. The two sides were now both in enemy territory, gazing into the dark forest where one had gone and the other was expected to come through. The two commanders moved their armies around flawlessly, keeping their eyes on the entire surrounding. Days passed with no action or battling. Then Bullum got impatient, splitting his army in three. The middle division marched back into the forest to guard the bottleneck, while the other two climbed the valley walls and skirted around the two arms, attacking the waiting Caninaeans below. Dark clouds crowned the battlefield for the 3 days of fighting. Reinforcements came in a steady stream to both sides, slowly feeding the fire of battle just as it began to dwindle. The dark morning of the third day came with Rayan looking out on his shrinking numbers. His general was at his shoulder, watching the carnage reignite with the coming of the morning. "Can the men last the day, O chief?" asked the general. Rayan's ears twitched. "Order a hasty retreat." "But my lord, the valley." "There's no defending the valley with dead men. Order the retreat." The retreat was ordered, and the Caninaeans fell back over the valley wall, barely pursued by the equally exhausted Felinians. Back in the halls of their homes, Rain and Bellum decided that the other race had to be wiped out, and would stop at nothing to achieve that end. With grave losses on both sides, the two fledgling nations sat in their capitals, awaiting their next confrontation. The rest of the story of the Felinians and Caninaeans will be in the next video, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. See you then!